Imagine raising over $100 million, hiring hundreds of people, and being backed by one of the biggest fintech companies in the world, only to generate less revenue in an entire year than a single popular coffee shop. This is the true story of Fast, the startup that promised to revolutionize the internet with a single button, but instead became one of Silicon Valley's fastest failures. This isn't just a story about a failed company. This is an autopsy of how ambition, hype, and a tsunami of cash can create a catastrophe. Welcome to the first case file of Business Autopsy. On this channel, we put on our coroner's gloves to examine the bodies of businesses. And for our first autopsy, we have a spectacular subject. A company that rose like a rocket and fell like a stone, Fast. Every great autopsy begins with the cause of life. For Fast, that life began in 2019 with a charismatic Australian founder named Domm Holland. Holland, like many of us, was frustrated by the friction of the internet. The origin story goes that he was trying to buy groceries online for his wife's grandmother and got locked out of his account. The password reset nightmare, the endless forms. It's a universal pain point. And in that moment of frustration, he had $1 billion idea. What if you could buy anything, anywhere online, with a single click? No passwords, no forms, just one click. The product was called Fast Checkout. It was a universal login and checkout button that websites could add to their store. For consumers, it was a dream. Sign up once, and the entire internet becomes your one-click marketplace. In an age where convenience rules, Fast promised to become the checkout layer of the web. For businesses, the pitch was just as seductive. Every abandoned cart is lost money. Fast promised to reduce cart abandonment and increase conversions. It was the perfect win-win. The idea was so simple, so elegant, that it felt inevitable. And in Silicon Valley, inevitable is another word for here's all of our money. And it caught fire. Stripe, the fintech giant, invested $20 million in their Series A. The startup was suddenly worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But the real shockwave came just over a year later. Fast announced a $102 million Series B funding round, co-led by the payment giant, Stripe. This was the ultimate seal of approval. The company was now valued at nearly $600 million. With a massive war chest, Domm Holland went on a hiring spree. The company ballooned. He became a loud, unmissable personality on Twitter, a master of hype who was selling a vision of a frictionless future. They sponsored sports teams. They threw epic parties. And at the center of it all, Domm Holland, charismatic, bold, and unshakably confident. He positioned himself as a disruptor, the kind of founder VCs dream of. He spoke often about speed, about execution, about being the kind of company that moved fast and broke things. And for a while, that energy was contagious. But as our autopsy will show, the rocket was burning fuel at an impossible rate, and it hadn't even really cleared the launch pad. Flush with cash, Fast began expanding aggressively. From a lean team of 20 to over 400 employees in less than a year. New offices, lavish branding, full-page ads, the works. The company prioritized growth above all else. Growth in team size, growth in branding, growth in visibility, but not necessarily growth in usage. While the party was raging on Twitter, some journalists and industry observers started looking past the hype and at the numbers. What they found was shocking. Internal sources and later reports revealed that Fast was burning through roughly $10 million a month. So what about the revenue? According to a report from NPR, in all of 2021, the year they raised over $100 million, Fast generated just $600,000. For every $200 they spent, they made only $1 back. The one-click dream simply wasn't getting adopted. Businesses weren't installing the button. Why? It turns out the problem wasn't as big as they claimed. Shopify already had Shop Pay. Google and Apple had their own autofill solutions. The problem of typing in your info was already mostly solved. Fast was a solution in search of a problem that wasn't big enough to justify its existence, let alone its astronomical valuation. Also, despite all the expansion, a massive problem lingered beneath the surface: actual customer adoption. By early 2022, the music was about to stop. The venture capital market was getting tight, and Fast's tank was running on empty. They desperately tried to raise more funding or find a buyer. They approached other fintech companies, but no one was biting. The numbers were just too horrifying. The revenue was microscopic and the burn rate was catastrophic. They had built a 500-person company on the revenue of a small-town hardware store. In a Medium post, Domm wrote about how proud he was of the team and the vision. But for many employees, it felt like betrayal. The biggest frustration? It could have been avoided. There was time to pivot, time to cut spending, time to validate. But the company was operating on momentum, not metrics. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, said one investor. We wanted to believe, but the numbers didn't lie. On April 5, 2022, the news broke. In an all-hands meeting, Domm Holland announced that Fast was shutting down. Effective immediately. Just like that, the company valued at over $500 million was worth zero. The investment, gone. The jobs, gone. The one-click dream was dead. So, let's open the chest cavity. It wasn't just bad timing, or macro conditions, or bad luck. Fast built a vitamin, not a painkiller. It was a nice-to-have, not a must-have. They fell in love with their solution before proving the problem was a burning, urgent need. Second, premature scaling. They hired and spent like a company that had already won. The 500 employees and $10 million monthly burn were for a company that might exist in the future, not the one that existed in reality. Third, vanity metrics over revenue. The focus was on generating hype, followers, and headlines. These metrics feel good, but they don't pay the bills. They prioritize the appearance of success over the actual, unglamorous work of generating revenue. And finally, the primary diagnosis, hubris. This was the core issue. It's the belief that because you have a good idea and a lot of investor cash, you are immune to the fundamental laws of business. Fast believed its own hype. They thought they could burn cash forever and that revenue would just eventually show up. But business doesn't work that way. Gravity always wins. The story of Fast is a critical cautionary tale. It's a reminder that no amount of venture capital can save a business that doesn't have a solid foundation. You need a real product that solves a real problem for real, paying customers. It shows that hype is cheap, but execution is everything. The cautionary tale here isn't just for founders. It's for investors, for teams, for users. If a company isn't solving a pain point, then all the PR in the world won't save it. Fast built a rocket ship before checking if the runway was long enough to take off. And when it ran out of fuel, it crashed. What are the biggest lessons you're taking away from the fall of Fast? And what companies' remains should be examined next? Let us know in the comments below. If you want to learn from the biggest failures in business history to build your own success, subscribe to Business Autopsy and enable notifications so you don't miss the next case file.